The Garden of Knowledge, Dune of Lacona, panel number 1. The Tuscan Archipelago National Park welcomes you to the dune area of Lacona. Further on, you will find the info point with all the park's information materials. The space has been set up with the collaboration of Tenuta Orti di Mare di Lacona. This garden briefly illustrates the reality of the dunes. Lacona Territory, historical background. For several thousand years, the sea level was so low that Elba was not an island, but a promontory linked to the continent, allowing numerous groups of prehistoric people to arrive on foot. Raffaello Foresi, an avid collector of archaeological and prehistoric documents, minerals and objects, discovered the first evidence of the Stone Age on Elba, right here in Lacona, in 1865. He and other researchers later found tombs, artifacts and remains from prehistoric, protohistoric, Etruscan, Roman and Pisan times. Etruscan and Romans used timber from Lacona's forests to smelt Elban ores to extract iron. In later centuries, the reduced frequentation of the island allowed the regeneration of the holm oak forests until the Pisans, between the 11th and 14th centuries, resumed iron ore processing. Herding and more than 100 years, from 1818 to 1950, of vine and wheat cultivation further compromised the regional vegetation. Elba's gold, the grapevine, used to be cultivated in Lacona in over 200 hectares of vineyards that produced up to 17,000 hectoliters of wine per year. Over the past 70 years, Lacona's hinterland has been partly renaturalized uphill and urbanized on the plain, under the impetus of the tourist economy. The Garden of Knowledge, Dunes of Lacona, panel number 2. 2 centuries of history, sand, beach and dunes of Lacona. In the early 1800s, the area behind the dunes was described as marshy and uninhabitable for 3 months of the year. For this reason, except for the Romiti custodians of the little church called Madonna della Neve and little else, Lacona was almost totally uninhabited until 1818. Later, the area was reclaimed and cultivation was able to reach as far as the then existing dunes. On that date, the cultivation of vines began, and with it, the construction of several manor villas and about 30 farmhouses and small warehouses. To carry out the constructions, sand was taken from the dunes, but in small quantities and still compatible with their substantial integrity. Since 1950, large parts of the sand have been used in construction aimed at tourist activity. This massive removal and the construction of settlements near the sea have almost completely compromised the dune structure and contributed to the regression of the coastline. It remains of particular importance the stretch between the Lacona and Santa Maria ditches, where great part of the typical dune morphology is present. On the dunes of Lacona, numerous plant species exclusive to this environment can be found. Since 1996, the dune area has been part of the Tuscan Archipelago National Park with Protection Grade B General Reserve. The protected area is under video surveillance and European projects have been activated for its preservation. The Garden of Knowledge, Dunes of Lacona, panel number 3. The beach and dunes between land and sea. The coast represents the boundary between land and sea. From the beach of Lacona, looking inland, one can see on 3 sides the mountain ridges bordering a catchment area of 8 square kilometers. Precipitation within this territory flows downstream into ditches and reaches the sea, carrying small fragments of rock. Wave action and friction refine the materials carried by the ditches, which over time become part of the beach sand and dunes. The continuity of the exchange between the immersed and submerged beach sees the grains translocate from one environment to the other. The beach and dunes are thus the fruit of the land behind them, which generated and nurtured them. Lacona Bay is a 3-kilometer deep gulf influenced by wind and wave motion, which tends to accumulate sand off the sides, giving it a rounded shape. However, the natural movement of sand from one end of the bay to the other is hindered by hard barriers, such as walls and buildings, which prevent spontaneous redistribution to land and promote erosion. Due to sand removal and past mistakes in the management, the beach has thus decreased in size in recent years, making the protection of this asset essential today. The Garden of Knowledge, Dunes of Lacona, panel number 4. The structure of the dunes. Wind is the main architect of the dunes, moving sand grains that accumulate in the presence of obstacles. Plants of increasing height act as barriers, picking up more and more sand, while those that complete their vegetative cycle enrich the dune with organic matter. This process allows dunes to grow in both height and extent. In environments close to the sea, we first find embryonic dunes, colonized by pioneer species with limited coverage, followed landwards by mobile dunes, where erosive processes are contained and Sparto pungente thrives. Then the fixed dunes, with more structured morphologies and vegetation, characterized by the presence of Crucianella marittima and other species. We will then find the interdune, and finally the consolidated dune, dominated by tree vegetation. In Lacona, this typical sequence of dune strings is absent, defining the dune system as residual, representing what remains of the previous natural state. However, this environment remains unique in the Tuscan archipelago. The dunes of Lacona constitute an important natural heritage, hosting exclusive plant species, defending the hinterland and freshwater aquifers, preventing the wind from dispersing the sand, and representing a valuable resource in terms of flora, vegetation, and habitats typical of the coast. The Garden of Knowledge, Dunes of Lacona, panel number 5. Dune habitat, flora, and vegetation. The current reality of dune plants is deepened by considering 3 basic concepts: habitat, flora, and vegetation. A habitat is a place with specific chemical and physical characteristics suitable for the survival of certain living organisms. On the dunes, there are several habitats, whose destruction will result in the disappearance of the species that inhabit them, while their protection preserves their biodiversity. The present flora is the result of a long evolutionary history, in strict dependence on the geological history and climatic vicissitudes, and it includes all the plant species in a given context. The species growing on the dunes are typical because they have evolved by adapting to saltiness, heat, and water and nutrient-poor soils. These plant species are not randomly distributed, but tend to form balanced associations. The vegetation consists of plant complexes with a certain biological physiology related to the environment. Current plant communities are threatened by the introduction of invasive alien species, which occupy space exclusively, destroying plant association and reducing biodiversity. In Italy, in a century, dune areas have shrunk from 45,000 to 9,000 hectares, minus 80%. The synergy between habitat, flora, and vegetation is a key element of biodiversity, especially in contexts like this, where plants are highly specialized and will only be preserved by protecting their habitat. The Garden of Knowledge, Dunes of Lacona, panel number 6, the flora of the dunes. About 12,500 species of vascular plants are known in Europe, of which at least 6,711 occur in Italy. Among these, 1,098 have been reported in Elba. We can see that the vast variety of Italian habitats hosts more than half of all European flora, while the tiny Elba hosts 1/6 of the Italian flora and 1/12 of the European one. The presence of numerous species and multiple habitats reflect the island's high biodiversity, a precious heritage which we have a duty to preserve. In Lacona, 541 plant species have been recorded, 153 of which are found on the dunes, of which 24 are specific to dune environments. Among the 24 plant species of the dune, we find the three-horned stock, which, before the others are ready in March, creates pretty violet flower meadows. The seaside chamomile, with its eye-catching white and yellow flowers. The sea daffodil, with its shining whiteness. The cottonweed, with small yellow flowers at the top of elegant stems, which seems to be dressed in a soft, shiny grey fabric. The large flowered seashore false bindweed, and the rare branched stalk, with its tiny lilac flowers. The pale green-colored sea holly, with its stinging leaves, which look like a fortress or a miniature prehistoric animal. The Garden of Knowledge, Dunes of Lacona, panel number 7. Other plant species present on the dunes. Of the 153 plant species surveyed on the dunes of Lacona, 24 are considered typical, while the remaining 129 are also found in other contexts. Among the plant species present on the dunes, but not exclusive to this environment, we find the 3 types of rock rose, but especially the rock rose with large pink-purple flower and the female rock rose with white flowers, the spiny broom and the Italian straw flower with pretty yellow flowers. Among the shrubs, we find the myrtle with its flowers, featuring thick and long stamens with white filaments and yellow anthers full of color. The phillyrea with tiny white flowers. The mastic tree with chubby leaves and red flowers. The Garden of Knowledge, Dunes of Lacona, panel number 8. Small gestures to help preserve the beach and dunes. By adopting the following precautions, you can enjoy your time at the beach, being sure that you are actively contributing to its preservation. 1. Get the sand off your back. As we leave the beach, we take small amounts of sand with us, which, multiplied by the 100,000 of people who visit the beach each season, generate significant amounts. 2. Respect the boundary of the dune area without crossing the rope marking the protected zone. Let dune plants grow undisturbed. 3. Respect the local fauna and flora. Do not disturb both marine and terrestrial animals or coastal plants, and do not collect shells or other natural elements. Remember that these organisms contribute to the balance of the ecosystem and to the beauty of the beaches and dunes. 4. Reduce the use of single-use plastic. Single-use plastic is one of the biggest pollutants to our beaches and oceans. Avoid using plastic straws, cutlery, and plates. Instead, carry metal or bamboo cutlery and reusable plates and cups. If you need a straw, opt for a reusable stainless steel or glass straw. 5. Share your awareness. Share your knowledge and behaviors with friends, family, and other beach goers. Make others aware of the importance of preserving and protecting this environment for future generations. We are numerous and diverse, more or less aware and mindful. We are part of a community where opinions and experiences are intertwined, and each of us has the opportunity to promote knowledge and attention to the reality of the dunes. What else you need to know to promote the protection of the dune environment? Posidonia oceanica is a plant essential for marine life and beach preservation. Therefore, we do not drop anchor in areas where this plant is found and leave the dead leaves to protect the beach from storm surges during winter. The great energy accumulated by the sea is expressed in the wave motion, constantly redrawing the shoreline of the beach. For this reason, we need to leave the beach free of obstacles such as constructions and hard structures. In the coming years, the sea level will rise, advancing landward and repositioning the dunes. For this reason, the area behind the dunes must remain as much free of constructions as possible.